Hi loves, welcome back to the channel Style by C. On today's tutorial, we'll talk on how to recreate this beautiful two-piece, ankara two-piece, a two and a long gown. So do subscribe to the channel, share to friends. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up, turn on your notification bell for more, so that whenever we upload new videos, you'll be able to get it. Thank you so much. So guys, at this point, I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into two. Alright, using my largest body measurement, which is my hip measurement. Okay, so I'm going to place my tape at the bottom part, which is my full length at 62. Then from there I'm going to be marking my half length, which is 16 inches. That means I'm using the whole of this fabric because this is where my 16 inches falls. So this is what I have. I don't know if you can see it clearly. So from here now is going to be serving as my waistline. So from this waistline now, I'm going to mark 9 inches, which is where my hip measurement is going to be. Alright, so my waist measurement is 28 inches. When I divide it, I will have 7 plus 2 inches seam allowance. Then coming to my hip line, I'll mark my hip line. My own divide by 4, I will have 9.5 plus 2 inches, which is here. Now I'm going to connect it to my waist. I connected it to my waist. Then from my hip measurement, I'm going to drag it down to the bottom of my gown. Having done that, I'm going to cut it out. But before cutting it out, I'm going to show you the full of what we have. So this is what the down part looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out now. So this is what I have. I'm going to notch the center point. Having done this, I'm going to use this to cut out my back piece. I'll go ahead and refold my fabric again into two. So guys, at this point now, I've gone ahead to place my front piece on my folded fabric. Alright, so this is what I have now. I left 1.5 inches to 2 inches seam allowance, zip allowance. Okay, 1.5 inches zip allowance. This is my zipper allowance. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. After cutting it out, the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do is to create my slits that will be at the back. Alright, so you can decide to work from the upper part to your new length, 18 inches. Then you add extra 2 inches. From there you can create your slit, or you can also decide to do it this way. From the bottom part you mark 24 inches, 22 to 24 inches. Alright, now from this center point I'm going to be marking half an inch. The half an inch I'm marking is my joining allowance with my lining. So this is what I have. Then at this point now, don't know if it is clear now. At this particular point, I'm going to be making a curve here this way. Then I'm going to cut it out. So this is what I have. I'll go ahead and open it up. So I'm gonna need to open it up, then I'll notch my zip allowance. I've notched my zip allowance. Now go ahead and cut out your lining for your skirt pieces. So now the next thing to do is to work on the upper bodice. Basic body, this is my shoulder, my chest line, my bust point, my underbust, the half length or waistline. All right, so the next thing I'm going to go ahead now is to insert my nipple to nipple measurements. All right, so my nipple to nipple, I'm going to be working with 4 inches. Measure yours, please. So this is what I have, 4 inches. So from my bust line, I'm going to connect it down to the waist or to my half length. So this is what I have. The next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to be marking 1.25 inches from this point outward, and from this point in I'm going to mark 1 inch. Then I'm going to be connecting the dots together. So this is what I have. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do now, from this point I'm going to be using this curved drill to connect it to my bust point. Having done this, this is what I have. Okay, so now what next we're going to do is we're going to be dividing our shoulder slope into 2 to get our midpoint. Whatever you have left on your shoulder, divide it into 2. So this is the center of my shoulder slope. I'm going to be connecting it to my bust point. Having done that, this is what we have. The next thing we're going to be marking is what we have at our bust area, the difference between our bust and under bust. So we have 3 inches. Okay, so from that point that is 3 inches, you're going to be placing your tape at your bust point, and you're going to mark what you have. Basically, this is where your new chest line is going to be, because this is going to be an off shoulder. So you can decide to work with 2 inches or 3 inches or more. For this tutorial now, I have 1.5 inches from my chest line upwards, but I'm going to be working with 2 inches. The half inch I added extra is for seam allowance. So I have 2 inches. I'm going to go ahead and make a rule. So this is what I have. On this my new chest line, I'm going to be marking 1 inch on both sides. This is to tighten my over bust. Then from there I'm going to connect it to my bust point. Having done that, this is what we have. Now we're going to go ahead and make our sweetheart neck, which is going to be coming from this point. So this is what we have here. So now you determine where you want, how deep you want your sweetheart neck to be. You can decide to leave it at your chest line. You can decide wherever you want it to be. It's totally fine. You can decide to come up maybe by 1/2 inch or come down by 1/2 inch. So I'm going ahead to make my curve. So this is what I have. Mine is going to stop at my chest line. Then from this point, I'm going to be making a curve into my armhole line or armhole curve. Please don't make it to be pointy. So this is what I have. If you have a pointy edge, what you have to do is just go in and blend it with your marker. So this is what I have. The next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to mark my actual body measurements. So my bust divided by 4, I'm having 8.5, which is here. For my waist, I have 7 inches when I divide it by 4. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is these measurements I've removed from my pattern paper. I'm going to be adding it back. We have 2.25 inches here. We're going to add it back to this place, which is here, plus 1 inch extra seam allowance or sewing allowance. Coming to our chest line here, we have 2 inches here. We're also going to be adding it back to this, plus 1 inch seam allowance. Note, this is not our actual seam allowance. They're still going to be adding extra 2 inches for our seam allowance. Then we connect the points together. So this is what we have. We're now going to go ahead and cut this out. This is what I have. Then I'm going to open up this part. And this part. Having done that, this is what our bustier will be looking like. This is what our front upper body will be looking like. So the next thing to do is to transfer this to our fabric. So guys, now the next thing we are going to do is we are going to go ahead and work on our back piece. So now I left 1.5 inches before I start marking out my back pattern or my back piece, because of we're going to be having a zipper at the back. All right, so this is my shoulder line, this is the chest line, this is my nipple point. All right, so for the front one, we kicked off from 3 inches above to get our new armhole, new chest line. But for this part piece now, we're not going to be working with it, because where we're working with is our chest line, so this is not needed. So on this chest line, I'm going to go ahead and mark my bust measurement plus 2 inches seam allowance. Then I'm going to come to my half length, and I'm going to mark my waist measurement plus 2 inches seam allowance, which I have here. Then I'm going to connect the two of them together. So this is what I have, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. So this is what I have for my upper back. Go ahead and notch it, your zipper allowance to center. So having done this, the next thing I'm going to do is to attach an interfacing or iron an interfacing to my fabrics. Guys, at this point, I've gone ahead to cut out, transfer my pattern paper to my fabrics, and this is what I have. This is my bustier, this is the back. So the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to join them together. Alright, same thing with my back piece. I'm also going to go ahead and join my lining to it. Guys, I've gone ahead to fold my two or my net into two, into four, because I'm cutting out the front and the back piece together. That's why I wanted to fold it into four. So the length of my net is 60 inches. I wanted to create an A line. This is just an A line. This is my shoulder slope, armhole. So this is my bust measurement. My bust measurement is 8.5. I added 2 inches to it. Alright, so from the bust measurement, what you have, you're going to drag it down to the full length of your two. Alright, so that is what I have here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this piece out. I think it's not really that bright, like the chalk is faint, but we have to do what we're going to do. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going ahead to cut it. Just watch what I'm cutting. So I've cut out my shoulder. So from here now I'm going to start cutting out my armhole. So this is my armhole. Then from this point now I'm going to cut it to the full length of my two. Alright guys, so at this point now I'm done cutting out my two. I worked with 60 inches and I reduced it to, I removed 10 inches from it, from the bottom parts for my ankara piece. Now I'm going to be adding extra 10 inches to my ankara piece. Alright, reason is the tool is not long enough. If I should use that 10 inches I have, it's going to be like a jumper. I want it to be like very pronounced at the bottom part. So I'm going to be adding extra 10 inches to the 10 I have, making it 20 inches. So the length of my ankara at the bottom is going to be 20 inches. The choice is totally yours. You can decide to make yours less, you can decide to make it more longer. So now the next thing I'm going to be cutting out is the depth of my neck. So for the front neck, I'm going to be working with 4 inches. Alright, you can decide to work with 3.5. You can decide to work with 5, 6. The choice is totally yours. But for my back neck, I'm going to be working with 1.5 inches. That is the depth. Then the neck width is 3 inches. I made a mistake. I almost cut this stuff. So I'm going to remove one piece and cut out one post. So this is for my front piece. That's what I'm going ahead to cut out now. So then the other one is going to be for my back piece. The depth I'm going to be working with 1.5 inches. Alright, having done this now, I'm going to go ahead and open up my back piece by the center of my back. I'm going to be coming down to about 4 inches. Okay, Reason is there is no zip allowance on our back, but we're going to be using a cotton bias to pipe the back. So this is what I have. So guys, at this point now, I want to cut out my sleeve. The full length I'm working with is 27 inches. You can decide to work with less, you can decide to work with longer. The choice is totally yours. Alright, so now I'm going to be marking just like a normal basic sleeve. But this one now is going to be having like it's a bell sleeve. Alright. So this is my bicep line, which is at 4. I'm going to go ahead and insert my bust measurements plus my seam allowance. So this is what I have. I'm going to connect this together. Alright. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the bottom of my sleeve where that's my wrist area. I'm going to insert my wrist measurement. So my wrist measurement is 7. When I divide it, I'm going to be having 3.5 inches. I'm gonna head to mark it. Alright. Now, a proper bell sleeve. From that point, you're going to be adding about 12 inches to give you that full flounce you need. Alright. Okay. So, but this one now I have 10 inches. So when I'm cutting on my ankara, I'm going to go ahead and complete it. So from this point now, I'm going to be connecting it to that point. So this is what I'm going to be having. I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. But before cutting it out, I'm going to specify where I want my ankara piece to start from. So I'm going to place my tape back to my start point line. Then I want my ankara to start from 18 inches or let's say 19 inches. Sorry. So this is what I have. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. Alright. Now I'm going to cut this from this point. And I'm going to go ahead and notch the center of what I have here. Then I'm going to keep it outside. Then cut this out. So this, we're going to be using this to cut on our ankara piece. Guys, at this point now, I'm going ahead to place my tule on top of my ankara fabric. Remember I said I'm going to be adding extra 10 inches to mine. So this is my extra 10 inches. I'm going ahead to cut it out now. So from here now, I'm going to go ahead and give it that A-line shape. So this is what I have, and I'm going to cut it out from the other point. At this point now, I've gone ahead to pipe my neck area. This is what I have, and this is my armhole. So I'm going to go ahead and attach my sleeve to it. All right, after doing this, I will now go ahead and shape my tule. Then another thing I have to talk on is this part of the tube, please, after joining it to your fabric, ensure that you top stitch on it, all right, to hold down the net. So that's what I did. You're also going to do it to your sleeve after attaching the net to it. Okay, so my back piece, I've gone ahead to turn on my lining, both the skirt parts and the the top part. All right, so this is what I have. I joined it together, then marked my dart stitch on it. Okay, so I decided to add a sleeve or a strap to my own. I don't want it to be strapless, so I decided to add a strap to it. My strap is about 14 to 15 inches long. All right, so this is what I have here. So, and for my bustier, I've gone ahead to join it, and this is what I have. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn it out with my lining, then join it with my skirt part, the front part of my skirt piece. All right, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and do now. So this is the final result of what we have, of what our long gown looks like. See you in our next tutorial, and don't forget to stream our other videos. Thank you so much, darling.